All right, guys, so let's talk about Tesla stock, what's going on with Elon Musk lawsuit, and more importantly, what's going on with Chinese EV restrictions that might possibly hurt Tesla as well. But of course, more importantly, guys, we'll talk about what all of this means to the actual stock price. We'll cut through the Wall Street noise because there's a lot of noise around it. We'll talk about that too. But we'll get down to what it means for the stock price. Just make sure you like the video if you like getting the truth out the hype, because that's exactly what you're going to get today. All right, so I know it's been a little bit quiet on the Tesla front, and actually it really hasn't been all that quiet, but there's just been so many other things going on, people freaking out about the market, all this doom and gloom, everything else. We've covered it in a couple videos here. Obviously, you guys know my thoughts on all that sort of stuff. That's just opportunity for us as long-term buy and hold investors. But let's get into specifically what Wall Street's saying about Elon Musk, how these lawsuits are going to affect it, how some of the regulation against Chinese EV companies is going to also affect Tesla, and more importantly, we'll get down to the bottom of what it means for the share price. So let's jump into the video right here.
Joining me now to discuss more on the EV maker, these various lawsuits, and everything happening also overseas. I'd like to welcome in Caroline Wood, senior markets correspondent for the network. So Caroline, what a day. And of course, there's no better day to discuss a name like Tesla. That's also seeing some selling. But I was looking actually at its intraday chart. We've recovered pretty substantially off lows here.
Hey there, Jenny. Yes, like the major averages, like you were talking about, Tesla well off earlier lows, still down about 3.5%. But like the other Magnificent Seven numbers, definitely in a bit better of a position than they were when the market first opened this morning. But quite a few headlines surrounding Elon Musk, of course, the CEO of Tesla. The first being that his lawsuit against OpenAI is back on in federal court. Musk alleges that he was manipulated into believing that OpenAI, he was helping to launch an AI company, which became OpenAI with Sam Altman and Greg Brockman. And he was manipulated into believing it was a nonprofit. According to this complaint filed in the U.S. District Court in Northern California today, Sam Altman, now the CEO of OpenAI, allegedly courted and deceived Musk, promising him they would pursue a nonprofit venture together for the benefit of humanity. In turn, Musk invested tens of millions of dollars and recruited top AI scientists for the project. Musk alleges that Altman abandoned their mission by entering a multi-billion-dollar partnership with Microsoft. The complaint said Altman assured Musk that the nonprofit structure guaranteed neutrality and a focus on safety and openness for the benefit of humanity, not for shareholder value. But as it turns out, this was all hot air philanthropy, the hook for Altman's long con. So you may remember that Musk actually filed a similar lawsuit against OpenAI back in March, claiming that OpenAI had broken its founding agreement by giving priority to profits over humanity. But Musk withdrew that complaint in June, just a day before a judge actually ruled if it would be dismissed or not. So at the time, OpenAI wrote a blog post, which included some emails from Musk as well, saying there is no founding agreement or any agreement at all with Musk. Musk claims rest on convoluted, often incoherent factual premises. So the drama kind of ensues, it continues. Obviously,
All right, so we'll kind of address the lawsuit right there first up. I think it's much to do about nothing. If there's nothing in any sort of operating agreement, some other formal documentation, or anything else of that nature, even if there was all that, and even if there was hard evidence that this is what they said, this is what they're going to do, companies have the rights to change their mind and to change their mission statement, whatever the case is, unless there's something in agreement to where they had to maintain that mission statement for 10 years in order for Elon Musk to invest in OpenAI. Whatever the case is, we're talking about legalities here, and just, hey, us going to dinner, having a handshake over it. I'm not saying it's right or ethical. And we're not even, of course, it's business, so ethics is a whole nother topic altogether in regards to business. But when we talk about legalities and in regards to lawsuits, you got to have something there tangible in writing or something else pointing towards that was the agreement in exchange for the money. And more importantly, a timeline added onto it with that money. To say it's a long con or something like that, I mean, you'd have to have proof that they had emails internally saying, haha, look, we suckered Musk out of his money. He thinks we're going to do this, but we're really going to do that. If you got some sort of a gotcha like that, okay, that lawsuit may very well work. But generally speaking, when I see lawsuits like this, they generally don't go anywhere. My guess is that's why he withdrew it the first time, because his lawyers probably said, hey, this isn't going anywhere. Do you want to judge the rule on this, or do you want to come back and refile and try to make our case stronger again? Now, maybe there's something in his filings that may very well come out if the court actually takes it all the way to trial and there's something there that kind of creates that scenario that there was something with Elon in regards to, or with agreement with OpenAI and with Elon in regards to that. But as of right now, and as of everything we've seen, there's nothing there indicating that beyond, well, we had conversations. They said this is why I invested. And unfortunately, in regards to legal realm and especially corporate legal realms, there's not a whole lot to stand on beyond that. One, especially now that we're years down the line from those initial investments and such. And obviously, there's been additional investments from additional investors. There's nothing that says I can't take on a larger partner who pays me more or who gets more equity in the company in regards to the company itself. And now that particular company can then move forward and basically say, hey, this is how we're going to move the company forward. We're changing directions, this direction. And there's nothing saying that that can't happen. That happens all the time in regards to big business, especially when you're taking on capital as a startup. That's just kind of the way it goes. That's what those venture capitalists are there for. They give you money, but there's an exchange for that money. And again, depending upon how this was all written and everything else. Now, I'm not saying that I'm not necessarily defending what, the other side either. I'm just trying to look at it just purely from a legal perspective and in regards to just kind of looking at this unbiased, that unless there's something there in the documentation, there's not a whole lot there in regards to this lawsuit. In regards to how this particular thing affects Tesla stock, what it does is it just creates more noise around Tesla. As we all know, there is so much noise around Tesla that we don't need any more noise. But am I concerned with this? No. Elon likes to do lots and lots of things that are way outside the norm there. The reality is the lawyers are taking care of all this. He's probably in the background just saying, I want you guys to do X. Somebody else is doing all the legwork for the vast majority of the work that goes into a lawsuit like this. So it really doesn't take him a lot of time. And no, it's not diverting focus from Tesla or anything else like that. This is obviously something that was on his mind, and this is his way of basically getting it off of his mind is by filing the lawsuit. So for me, it's almost a positive overall.
Tesla shareholders don't necessarily like when Elon Musk's attention is focused on other things, but can't necessarily say that this lawsuit is what's weighing on shares today. Because if you take a look, the Magnificent Seven is all lower today as the AI trade kind of continues to unwind. And then if you take a look at some of the EV makers, with the exception of Rivian, which is higher today, we're seeing weakness. Lucid is lower. The Chinese EV makers, take a look. NIO, XPeng, Li, BYD, U.S. listed shares all trading lower today as well. GM and Ford also contributing to weakness today as well.
Tesla continues to be one of the most argued about names on the street. I was just looking at the analyst breakdown. It always just blows my mind how evenly split it is. We know there's usually a little bit more bulls in general in the market, but this is about as even across the buy, hold, and sell as you can find.
Yes, unlike the other Magnificent Seven stocks, which are all very, which skew very bullish in terms of the analyst breakdown, Tesla actually has more holds than buys right now. If you take a look, there's 40% of hold ratings and about 36% buy ratings. So pretty even, as you said, but a little bit more in terms of the hold count. Given the
Still makes sense to me if you really want me to be honest here. The rest of the Magnificent Seven, with the exception of Apple, has had a really, really, really good past 3 or 4 quarters. Tesla has not. Now, Tesla warned against it, said it was coming into a rough environment for their operation. So it would make sense, especially for those, analysts or whatever. Remember, they're traders. And in regards to the right trade in terms of, stocks going up would be the other Magnificent Seven and not Tesla. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be a Tesla bear or anything like that. I'm not bearish at all. I just know Elon told us, basically October last year, hey, it's going to be a rough next few quarters for a variety of different reasons that we've talked about many times here. And the rest of the Magnificent Seven have not had rough quarters the rest of the time. So of course that right there would make sense in regards to people who are making short-term predictions to kind of be not fully out of favor with Tesla, as you've seen, but not as bullish as they are on the other Magnificent Seven, which I think any of us, if we were all being honest, and we had to say, hey, for the next 6 months, for the next year, especially, think back to October last year, whenever Elon said all that, are you bullish or bearish on Tesla? Or would you be more, bullish on an NVIDIA per se versus a Tesla coming into 2024? I'm sorry, anybody who's being perfectly honest would have picked NVIDIA, hand over fist. I would have too, even though I don't own NVIDIA. I still would have picked NVIDIA over Tesla because they have lots and lots of demand on a product that they can basically sell for any price that they want. And Elon told us it was going to be a tough year. So, I mean, that's just simple right there. There's nothing out of the ordinary, out of the unusual, but this is kind of the way Wall Street kind of likes to cherry pick things to create narratives around what they want to have happen. And that's kind of what I'm trying to cue you in here to with this particular narrative, is that that's more of a narrative than it is the reality of the stock itself. If you're asking me which one's going to return better over the next 5 years, I think that's a very, very different question. I think analysts, if they were being honest, would give a very, very different answer, but they're never asked to look out that far. They're asked to look out, a couple quarters at max. So kind of is what it is, but you kind of see how these narratives are created and generated, when the reality was it was very, very easy to understand the why and to see this coming from a mile away.
The Tesla has come off of its highs recently, now down 20% year to date. It's actually trading above or below the median price target of 217.50, but still pretty close. It was trading above not too long ago. In terms of other EV news, though, Alex and Jenny, that could potentially be weighing on shares, especially the U.S. listed shares of the Chinese companies. Reuters is reporting the U.S. Commerce Department is considering banning Chinese software and autonomous and connected vehicles in the U.S. According to this Reuters report, the Biden administration plans to propose a rule that would prohibit Chinese software and vehicles in the U.S. with level 3 automation and above. So that would effectively also ban testing on U.S. roads of autonomous vehicles made by Chinese companies. Under the proposal, automakers and suppliers would need to verify that none of their connected vehicle or advanced autonomous vehicle software was developed in a foreign entity of concern, of course, like China. So we know that the U.S. has already sought to limit the entry of Chinese EVs into the U.S. by adding 100% tariffs. And then that clean energy bill makes it more difficult for automakers to use Chinese-made batteries. And so now this goes after, or according to this report, it would go after the software component, which could be weighing on shares of these Chinese-listed companies as well. And one other quick thing that I wanted to mention, bringing it back to Tesla. There was a podcast that Elon Musk was on over the weekend with Lex Friedman. It was part of an 8-hour podcast where he interviews multiple leaders. And I listened to a little bit, but I have to give credit to Al Root over at Barron's, who clearly listened a bit closer than I did. But he pointed out that Elon Musk actually gave some kind of positive commentary in terms of numbers for Tesla. He said that Tesla will generate sales of more than $100 billion this year. So Tesla generated about $47 billion in the first half of this year. So $100 billion or more than $100 billion would imply second half strength, a stronger second half than first half of the year, also higher than 2023, which amounted to about $97 billion. So that seems to be getting overshadowed.
So right there, and I'll kind of address both pieces in regards to the second half being better than the first half. That's exactly what Elon told us in earnings. This is why listening to the earnings call is so important, because it's not like it's shocking that he said that, because that's exactly what we expected, was for business to reaccelerate at the end of the year there. Again, you see it's not a massive growth. It's not this incredible whatever, growth rates that people like to throw out there and such whenever it comes to Tesla. It's reaccelerating that growth again, and it takes a little while for that to accelerate and move, especially since the Fed isn't just going to lower the rates down to 0 tomorrow. Maybe if that were to happen, maybe Tesla would see a faster reacceleration, but it's not going to happen. It's going to happen gradually over the next 6 to 8 months or so, maybe even longer than that in regards to rate cuts. So again, you notice how Wall Street tries to sound smart, tries to sound like they have inside information, and this is nothing new, nothing for anybody who's been paying attention to Tesla at all for a while. Now, in regards to the banning of, Chinese software, and obviously the pressure that's been put on, vehicles being exported, tariffs, all the other good things like that. Guys, you guys know I don't run down the political rabbit holes and everything else like that. That is clearly designed to help out legacy auto, stave off Chinese competition as long as possible. However, it indirectly helps Tesla. We can talk about whether the current administration likes Tesla or not, or whether the incoming administration, if it changes, is going to like Tesla or not. I'm not going to get into all that other rabbit hole type things. I just know that you cannot directly help U.S. auto manufacturers, regardless of which side of the aisle you're on, without helping out Tesla as well. It just is. Now, sure, do other things kind of hurt that can not be as good for Tesla, like if EV credits go away, depending upon who wins the election, other things like that? Of course. But if they're also trying to kickstart at the same point, U.S. auto manufacturing, that's going to directly benefit Tesla in a different way than it would have prior. So you kind of see how Tesla is kind of in a win-win situation, or at least a neutral situation, if certain things go away and then other things get put in place instead. You've got to kind of keep that in mind, that because they are a U.S. company, they're uniquely positioned to kind of, I'd say, win regardless, but because the rest of the US automakers suck so bad, there's an incentive on both sides to make them better, which is going to indirectly benefit Tesla, whether or not they want it to happen or not. Tesla's going to benefit from that. So it's kind of a little bit of an insulation from all the political nonsense that's going on out there and will go on here for the next few months, that I'm not really worried about who gets elected and who doesn't, what it means for Tesla stock. I think in the end, it'll either be a neutral or a slight positive to Tesla moving forward. And so I'm not concerned overall with that particular narrative at all.
Some of these other headlines today and also this, overall strength that we're seeing in the market. But I do think that's important to point out as well.
Okay, I totally do as well, and I completely think that's been overshadowed. I mean, I could not agree more. I feel like, hey, I guess who knows if they'll hit that target, as they've been one to make promises, perhaps. Sometimes they can't always fulfill as quickly as we'd hope, but that's still objectively a good piece of news. So we'll take that for what we will, and appreciate you bringing that piece of information for us. Caroline Woods, Senior Markets Correspondent. As always, appreciate all of the great Tesla insight.
Okay, and there we go right there, Wall Street. Wow, she seems super excited that she got this new information that nobody could have ever gleaned except for this particular person who was listening to a podcast, and Elon happened to say something on a podcast. I mean, look at how deep their information gets. And if you can't tell, I'm being really, really, really sarcastic. It's just comical how the links that Wall Street goes to try to generate narratives and try to pretend like they have inside information when they have absolutely nothing, guys. All you need is the freaking earnings call and the filings that the company makes to get 99.9% of the information you need about every single company that you invest in, to include Tesla. You don't need anything else. If you're doing that, you know probably more than Wall Street does, because they're not even listening to the entire earnings call. They're busy trying to create narratives out of things said on the earnings call, and just all kinds of other ridiculousness that they're going to do to kind of move the stock the way they want to move the stock. That's their goal. It's not like us. We're long-term buy and hold investors, so we're absolutely listening to those earnings calls, and there's nothing new here in regards to that. Now, in regards to stock price and how all this affects the stock price, I think it's going to be a typical Tesla train for the rest of the year here. You're going to have the bulls that want to run out ahead of everything, and of course, you're going to have the bears that are going to rely on and lean on the uncertainty. Kind of Elon's vacillating with politics, depending upon how much more he chooses to dip his toe in as we get closer to election time. A lot of other things like that are going to come up that, to me, are going to send this stock, on an even more schizophrenic roller coaster than it's normally on. What does that mean for us as investors? It means I'm not going to buy the hype and FOMO into the stock. It also means I'm not going to fear it whenever it starts to dip and get all doom and gloom. I've already done the valuation. Yes, the valuation has been dropping every quarter this year so far. Does it bottom finally? I hope that it does. I can't say that for sure. But is there light at the end of the tunnel? Because we're coming up to the end of that period that Elon told us about and guided to. Yes, that there is. And that means I just need to be disciplined, not fall into any of the narratives. And hey, if I happen to get down to my price target, I'm going to happily add shares once again. This is simply how Tesla trades. It gets irrational to the upside. It gets irrational to the downside. That's how come in a year you can see Tesla up at around 300 and also down under or right around 140 all in the same year. For a large cap, mega cap, Magnificent Seven type stock, that is utterly ridiculous, but it is par for the course for Tesla. That's why I preach valuation, why I preach everything we do on this channel so hard. It's why I wasn't buying when it was running up 200, 250, 280, whatever the case was. I was instead buying in the 160s, the 140s, because I just simply did a valuation and stayed patient. That was it. Not a lot of hard work there in regards to doing anything outside of controlling my emotions. You got to do that with Tesla stock, because when we come out of this and we start to see actual earnings, which is going to increase valuation, that right there is a time where you're going to be like, oh man, I wish I would have bought back whenever, as it starts its next leg up, as we kind of come out of this period for Tesla. So be on the lookout. Remember, when you get those opportunities, you're going to be down in the short term. Just ignore that fear. Instead, buy those shares and continue to build out that position, understanding that I'm not trying to win in 3 months. I'm not trying to win in 6 months. I'm trying to win, 3, 4, 5 years into the future and further. That's what I'm looking at. And if you need help with doing a valuation, you want to see my buy alerts in real time, you want to see my complete watch list with price targets to include a lot of stocks that we talk about here on this channel, make sure you check out the pinned comment for my group, where I may have left something special down there for those of you guys that have gotten this far in the video, where you get all that. You get 5 free courses, you get free coaching, you get access to the free stock analyzer tool, you get to be a part of the best 6, 7, and 8-figure Discord out there. Guys, there's so much involved in the actual group. Make sure you check out the pinned comment, see if a membership's right for you, and get your special gift while you're there. And click this video here if you want to see exactly what I'm buying in this market, and click here to see my exact plan for this market. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.